The fluorescent lights of Chicago Memorial's emergency room hummed with the same relentless frequency they had for the past 11 hours of Dr. Maya Reeves's shift. Her scrubs were stained with coffee, and something she hoped was just saline solution. Her dark hair, pulled back in what had started as a neat bun, now hung in rebellious strands around her face. At 32, Maya had learned that emergency medicine wasn't glamorous. It was brutal, beautiful, and occasionally miraculous. She stood at the nurse's station, updating patient charts on the computer, her fingers moving with the mechanical efficiency of exhaustion. Around her, the ER hummed with its usual chaos. A man with a possible broken arm sat clutching ice in Bay 3. An elderly woman with chest pains was being prepped for transport to cardiology. A toddler with a fever cried in his mother's arms. Just another Tuesday night in one of Chicago's busiest trauma centers. Maya had been working in emergency medicine for 7 years, ever since she'd graduated from Northwestern's medical program with crushing debt and idealistic dreams of saving lives. The debt was still there. The idealism had been tempered by reality, but the drive to help people that hadn't wavered. She'd grown up in the South Side, daughter of a postal worker and an elementary school teacher. Money had always been tight, but love had been abundant. When her younger brother Danny had been hit by a car at 15, it was the ER doctors at this very hospital who'd saved his life. Maya had stood in the waiting room, helpless and terrified, and made a promise to herself that she'd become the person who gave other families hope instead of standing in the waiting room praying for miracles. "Dr. Reeves?" A nurse appeared at her elbow. "We've got an incoming, 8-year-old female, possible head trauma from a fall at a playground. ETA is 3 minutes." Maya's exhaustion evaporated instantly. Kids always did that to her, sharpened her focus, made everything else fade away. "I'll take her. Get me a trauma bay ready and page neuro for standby." She grabbed a fresh pair of gloves and headed toward the ambulance bay, her worn sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. The automatic doors whooshed open, letting in the cold October wind. Chicago was brutal this time of year, all bitter cold and early darkness. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. The ambulance screamed into the bay, lights flashing red and blue against the darkness. The back doors flew open and paramedics jumped out, wheeling a gurney with practiced urgency. Maya's heart clenched when she saw the little girl. She couldn't have been more than 8, with dark curly hair matted with blood on one side, her brown skin pale with shock. She wore a private school uniform navy blazer, plaid skirt, knee socks, the kind that cost more than Maya made in a month. One of her shoes was missing. "What have we got?" Maya asked, falling into step beside the gurney as they rushed toward Trauma Bay 2. Isabella Romano, 8 years old. The lead paramedic, a woman Maya recognized named Chen, rattled off details of rapid fire. Fell from monkey bars at Lincoln Park Playground approximately 40 minutes ago. Lost consciousness at the scene for roughly 2 minutes. Witnesses say she hit her head on the ground. GCS was 13 in the field. BP's elevated pupils are reactive but sluggish on the left. Maya's hands were already examining the little girl as they moved, fingers gentle but efficient. "Isabella? Sweetie, can you hear me? My name is Dr. Maya. You're at the hospital, you're safe." The girl's eyelids fluttered. "Mama," she whispered, her voice slurred. "Want my mama." "I know, baby. We're going to find her, I promise." Maya looked at Chen. "Who called it in?" "Anonymous bystander, apparently. I called 911 and stayed with her until we arrived, but didn't give a name. By the time we got there, the person was gone. No parents on scene, no guardian, nobody claimed her." Maya's stomach tightened. An 8-year-old alone at a playground after dark? Something was very wrong with this picture. Did she have any ID? Phone? Anything? Chen shook her head. "Just this." She handed Maya a small backpack, pink with unicorns on it. "We found her phone inside, locked, couldn't access emergency contacts. They burst through the doors of Trauma Bay 2. Maya's team was already assembled, 2 nurses, a resident, a tech. Everyone moved like a choreographed dance they'd performed 1,000 times. "Let's get her transferred. On my count. 1, 2, 3. They lifted Isabella from the gurney to the hospital bed with synchronized precision. "Someone get me a full neuro assessment," Maya ordered, pulling on a fresh gown. "I want a CT scan of her head and cervical spine. Start an IV, get blood work, and someone finds out who this child belongs to." Her hands moved over Isabella's small body, checking for other injuries. Bruised knees, scraped palms, but the head wound was the primary concern. Blood had matted into her beautiful curls, and Maya could see the beginning of a significant hematoma forming on the left side of her skull. "Isabella, I need you to stay awake for me, okay?" Maya said gently, shining a penlight into the girl's eyes. The left pupil was definitely more sluggish than the right. "Not good. Can you tell me where it hurts?" "Head," Isabella mumbled. Her eyes were unfocused, struggling to track Maya's face. "Everything's spinning. Gonna throw up. Get me a basin," Maya called out. Nausea plus head trauma plus altered consciousness equaled potential intracranial pressure. They needed that CT scan immediately. "Isabella, this is very important. Do you remember falling?" The little girl's face crumpled. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. "Was trying to go higher, like Papa taught me. But I slipped and then everything went black and I woke up and everyone was staring and Papa wasn't there." "Where's your Papa, sweetheart?" "At work. Always at work." Her voice was so small, so resigned. "Mama's in heaven." Maya's chest tightened. A motherless child, a father who was always at work, and now a potentially serious head injury. "What's your Papa's name, Isabella?" But the girl's eyes had rolled back, her body going slack against the bed. "She's seizing!" the resident shouted. Maya's training took over, emotions locked away in the box where she kept them during emergencies. "Get me 2 milligrams of Ativan 4 push, now. Someone hold her head, protect that airway." The next 3 minutes were controlled chaos. Maya administered the medication, monitored Isabella's vitals, and watched as the seizure gradually subsided. By the time it was over, Isabella was unconscious, her small chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. "CT. Scan. Now," Maya said, her voice deadly calm despite the adrenaline screaming through her veins. "And someone crack that phone. I don't care if you have to call the FBI. This child's father needs to know his daughter is dying." 20 minutes later, Maya stood in the radiology viewing room, staring at Isabella Romano's CT scan with a growing sense of dread. The radiologist, Dr. Patel, pointed to a white mass on the left side of Isabella's skull. "Epidural hematoma," he said grimly. "Blood's collecting between her skull and the dura. It's putting pressure on her brain. She's going to need surgery, Maya. Soon." Maya's jaw clenched. "How soon? If that bleed keeps expanding at this rate, she's got maybe an hour, maybe less, before we start seeing serious herniation." Patel looked at her over his glasses. "Have you found her family?" "Working on it." Maya pulled out her phone and called the nurse's station. "Rachel, tell me you've got something on Isabella Romano's emergency contacts." "We're trying everything," Rachel said, frustration evident in her voice. "The school she goes to is closed for the night. We left messages. Her phone is locked with facial recognition and a passcode. We tried using her face while she was unconscious, but it's not working, probably too much facial swelling. Tech support is trying to bypass it, but they say it could take hours they didn't have." Maya paced the small viewing room, her mind racing. There had to be something, some way to find this child's father before it was too late. What about her backpack? Anything in there? Homework folder with her name on it, lunchbox, a stuffed rabbit, some crayons, nothing useful. Maya closed her eyes, thinking. A private school uniform, expensive shoes, a father who was always at work and could afford that kind of education. This wasn't a poor family. This was money, serious money. "The uniform," Maya said suddenly. "That's St. Catherine's Academy. I've seen those blazers. Before they're custom. Only that school wears them. Call St. Catherine's emergency line. Private schools like that have 24-hour emergency contacts for wealthy families. Someone there will have her father's information. On it." Maya hung up and returned to the trauma bay. Isabella lay motionless on the bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped with mechanical precision. Her small face was peaceful in unconsciousness, beautiful and heartbreaking. Someone had cleaned the blood from her hair, revealing the full extent of her injuries. The hematoma had grown, pushing her skin up in an angry purple bulge. Maya took the girl's small hand in hers. "I'm going to find your Papa, Isabella. I promise. Just hold on." Her phone buzzed. "Rachel, Dr. Reeves, we got him. St. Catherine's gave us the emergency contact information. Father's name is Dante Romano." The name hit Maya like ice water. She'd lived in Chicago her entire life. She'd watched the news, read the papers. Everyone knew that name, even if they pretended not to. Dante Romano. They called him the Wolf of Chicago in the papers when they were feeling dramatic. More commonly, he was just known as the man you didn't cross, the one whose name made city officials nervous and rival businessmen disappear, the Mafia boss whose daughter was currently bleeding into her brain on Maya's watch. "Did you call him?" Maya asked, her voice steady despite the fear crawling up her spine. "We tried. It went straight to voicemail. We left a message, but Dr. Reeves, people like that, they don't always answer unknown numbers. Try again. Keep trying. Every 2 minutes." Maya looked down at Isabella's peaceful face. "This little girl doesn't care who her father is. She just wants her papa. So we found him." Maya grabbed Isabella's phone from the plastic bag of her belongings. The screen was cracked but intact, showing a lock screen with a photo of Isabella hugging a tall man in sunglasses. His face was partially turned away from the camera, but Maya could see strong features, dark hair, and an expensive suit. Dante Romano, the wolf, the most feared man in Chicago. And she was about to leave him a voicemail that would either save his daughter's life or make Maya herself a target. She took a deep breath, steadied her hands, and pressed the button to call the most recent number in Isabella's phone. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. A man's voice, deep and commanding, gave a brief message. "Leave it." That was all. 2 words that somehow contained a universe of authority. The beep sounded. Maya spoke quickly, clearly, knowing she had one shot at this. "Mr. Romano, this is Dr. Maya Reeves from Chicago Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about your daughter, Isabella. She was brought into our emergency room approximately 45 minutes ago with severe head trauma. She's unconscious and needs immediate surgery or she will die. I don't know if you'll get this message in time, but if you do, you need to. Come now, Trauma Bay 2, we're running out of time." She hung up and immediately felt the weight of what she'd just done. She'd just told a Mafia boss that his daughter was dying. She'd just painted a target on this hospital, on herself, on everyone here. But looking at Isabella's small, still form, Maya knew she'd do it again. This was somebody's child, somebody's whole world. And Maya had sworn an oath to save lives, no matter who those lives belonged to. Dr. Reeves, the resident, appeared at her elbow. "Neurosurgery is on its way down. Dr. Kim says if we don't have parental consent in the next 20 minutes, we're going to have to go to the ethics board for emergency authorization." "We'll have consent," Maya said with more confidence than she felt. Her father's coming, she hoped. The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. Maya monitored Isabella's vitals, watching as her intracranial pressure continued to climb. The neurosurgeon, Dr. Kim, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, examined the CT scans and shook her head. "We need to drill now," she said bluntly. "This can't wait for parental consent. I'm calling the ethics board." "Give him 5 more minutes," Maya pleaded. "Please. This isn't about feelings, Dr. Reeves. This is about saving this child's life. If we wait, and she herniates." The automatic doors to the ER exploded inward, not opened, exploded. 4 men in dark suits strode through like they owned the building, and the one in front made everyone in the ER freeze. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with broad shoulders that strained against an obviously expensive charcoal suit. His dark hair was slightly disheveled, like he'd been running his hands through it. His face was all sharp angles and controlled fury, and his eyes, dark, intense, absolutely lethal, swept the emergency room like a predator searching for prey. Dante Romano had arrived, and he looked like he was ready to burn the hospital down if anyone stood between him and his daughter. Security guards moved to intercept him, hands reaching for their radios. One of Dante's men, a mountain of a man with a scar across his cheek, simply held up a hand. The gesture said everything. "Try it and die." The security guards hesitated, looking at each other, clearly uncertain whether their minimum wage job was worth confronting what was clearly a very dangerous situation. Maya stepped forward before anyone could make a catastrophic decision. "Mr. Romano," she called out, her voice projecting across the chaotic ER. "I'm Dr. Reeves. I called you. Your daughter is this way." Dante's eyes locked onto her, and Maya felt the full weight of his attention like a physical force. For a moment, she couldn't breathe, couldn't move, could only stand there as this terrifying man crossed the distance between them in long, purposeful strides. "Where is she?" His voice was exactly as she'd heard on the voicemail, deep, commanding, barely controlled rage, simmering beneath the thing surface. "Where is my daughter?" "Trauma Bay 2. This way." Maya turned and led him through the ER. acutely aware of how his presence changed the atmosphere. Nurses stepped aside. Patients went quiet. Even the machine seemed to beat more cautiously. His men followed, forming a protective perimeter that made it clear no one was getting close to their boss. Maya caught the eye of a security supervisor who was reaching for his radio, likely calling the police. She shook her head slightly. Not yet. Not until Isabella was safe. They reached Trauma Bay 2. Dante stopped in the doorway, and Maya saw something crack in his fierce expression. For just a moment, the dangerous man disappeared, and all that remained was a father looking at his injured child. "Bella," he whispered, and the anguish in his voice made Maya's chest ache. He moved to the bedside, his large hands hovering over Isabella's small body like he was afraid to touch her, afraid he might break her further. "What happened? Who did this?" "She fell from monkey bars at a playground," Maya said gently. "Lincoln Park. Approximately an hour ago. She has an epidural hematoma bleeding between her skull and her brain. She needs surgery immediately, or the pressure will cause permanent brain damage or death." Dante's jaw clenched, a muscle jumping beneath his skin. "Surgery?" "Yes, doctor. Kim is the neurosurgeon. She's one of the best in the state. But we need your consent, and we need it now. Every minute we wait, the hematoma grows." "Then do it." Dante's eyes never left Isabella's face. "Do whatever you have to do. I don't care what it costs. I don't care what you need. Save my daughter." Dr. Kim stepped forward with a tablet. "I need you to sign here, here, and here. This gives us consent for an emergency craniotomy to relieve the pressure and evacuate the hematoma." Dante signed without reading, his hand shaking slightly. It was the first sign of vulnerability Maya had seen, and somehow it made him more human, more real. "How long?" he asked. "The surgery will take approximately 2 to 3 hours, doctor," Kim said. "We'll keep you updated every 30 minutes. I'm going with her." "Sir, you can't." "I'm going with her." Dante's voice dropped to a dangerous softness. "I don't care about hospital policy. I don't care about sterile environments. My daughter is 8 years old. Her mother is dead, and she is going into surgery thinking she's alone. So I'm going with her until she's unconscious, and then I'll wait outside the OR doors. Those are my terms." Dr. Kim looked at Maya. Maya looked at Dante Romano and saw a man who would absolutely follow through on unspoken threats if they denied him this. "He can come to the OR," Maya said. "He can stay until she's under anesthesia. Then he waits outside." "Doctor." Kim's expression suggested she thought this was a terrible idea, but she nodded. "Fine. But you follow every instruction. Touch nothing. Speak only when spoken to. And if you compromise my sterile field, my staff will remove you by force." Dante's smile was cold. "They can try." Within 5 minutes, they were rolling Isabella toward the operating room. Dante walked beside the gurney, one hand resting on the rail, his eyes never leaving his daughter's face. Maya followed, knowing she should return to the ER, knowing she had other patients, but unable to walk away from this little girl or her terrifying father. In the OR prep area, they transferred Isabella to the operating table. The anesthesiologist began preparing her IV lines, checking monitors. Dante stood at the head of the table, looking down at his daughter with an expression that was equal parts love and devastation. "Mr. Romano," the anesthesiologist said gently. "A kind-faced woman named Dr. Patel. I'm going to put Isabella to sleep now. Would you like to say something to her before we begin?" Dante leaned down, his large frame bending over his daughter's small body. He pressed his lips to her forehead, and when he spoke, his voice was so soft, Maya almost couldn't hear it. "I'm here, Bella. Papa's here. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you fell. I'm so sorry I'm always working, always busy, always choosing everything else over you." His voice cracked. "But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving. You're going to be okay. Do you hear me? You're going to be okay because I can't lose you. I can't lose you too." Isabella's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and confused. "Papa?" "Right here, sweetheart. Don't go," she whispered. "Please don't go." "Never." Dante's hand engulfed hers. "I'm right outside those doors. The moment you wake up, I'll be there. I promise." Dr. Patel administered the anesthesia. Isabella's eyes drifted closed, her small hand going limp in Dante's grip. For several long seconds, he didn't move, just stood there holding his unconscious daughter's hand, his head bowed like a man at prayer. "Mr. Romano, doctor," Kim said quietly. "We need to begin." Dante released. Isabella's hand slowly, reluctantly, like letting go was the hardest thing he'd ever done. He stepped back, his eyes never leaving her face until the surgical team surrounded her, blocking his view with their bodies and equipment. Maya touched his arm gently. She's in the best hands possible. Dr. Kim has done hundreds of these procedures. Dante looked down at her, and Maya saw the raw fear in his eyes. If she dies, she won't. Maya interrupted, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. Isabella is strong. She's a fighter. I could tell from the moment I met her. She's going to make it through this. Something shifted in Dante's expression. You're the one who found her emergency contact. You're the one who called me. Yes. You saved my daughter's life. I'm just doing my job, Mr. Romano. Dante, he said quietly. My name is Dante. Maya nodded. Then you can call me Maya. They stood there in the hallway outside the OR, an exhausted ER doctor in stained scrubs, and the most feared man in Chicago in a $3,000 suit, united by a little girl fighting for her life on the other side of the door. And Maya realized with a mixture of wonder and terror that her life had just changed in ways she couldn't even begin to understand. The surgical waiting room was designed for comfort, soft chairs, warm lighting, magazines nobody read. But Dante Romano's presence transformed it into something else entirely. His 3 men positioned themselves at strategic points around the room, their eyes constantly scanning, hands never far from their jackets. The few other families waiting for news about their loved ones took one look at Dante and quietly relocated to other waiting areas. Maya should have left. Her shift had ended an hour ago. She had paperwork to complete, other patients to check on, a life to return to. Instead, she found herself sitting 3 chairs away from Dante, both of them staring at the closed OR doors like they could open them, through sheer force of concentration. You should go home, Dante said without looking at her. Get some rest. I'll have someone call you when she's out. I'm staying. Why? Maya considered the question. Why was she staying? She'd done her job. Isabella was in surgery with one of the best neurosurgeons in the state. There was nothing more Maya could do medically, but she kept seeing Isabella's small face, hearing her whisper, "Mama's in heaven," with such quiet resignation. She kept thinking about the little girl's fear when she'd whispered, "Don't go to her father," before the anesthesia took her under. "Because I promised her I'd find her papa," Maya said quietly. "And I want to make sure she knows I kept that promise." Dante turned to look at her for the first time since they'd sat down. In the softer light of the waiting room, he looked different than he had in the ER. Still dangerous, still commanding, but exhausted. There were lines around his eyes that spoke of too many sleepless nights. His expensive suit couldn't hide the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands gripped the armrests of his chair like he was holding himself in place through sheer will. "Tell me what happened," he said. "Everything. From the beginning." Maya walked him through it, the 911 call, Isabella's arrival, the initial examination, the seizure, the desperate search for emergency contacts. She kept her voice clinical, professional, but she couldn't keep the emotion out entirely when she described Isabella asking for her mama. Dante's face remained impassive throughout, but his knuckles went white where he gripped the chair. "She was alone," he said when Maya finished. "At a playground. After dark." "Yes, she's 8 years old." His voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried the weight of self-condemnation. "She's 8 years old and she was alone at a playground after dark because I was too busy with a meeting to pick her up from school." Maya didn't know what to say to that. She'd seen enough parents in the ER, the good ones drowning in guilt, the bad ones making excuses. Dante Romano was clearly the former, a father tearing himself apart over choices that had led his daughter to this moment. "What kind of meeting?" she found herself asking. Dante's smile was bitter. The kind where men with guns discuss territory and money and power. The kind that seems so important in the moment and so utterly meaningless now. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. "She called me. 4 times. I saw the calls, but I was in the middle of negotiations with people who don't tolerate interruptions. I told myself I'd call her back in 10 minutes, then 20, then an hour. You couldn't have known. I should have answered." Dante's voice was rough. "My daughter needed me and I chose business over her, just like I have every day since her mother died." The raw honesty in his words stunned Maya into silence. This wasn't what she'd expected, from Chicago's most notorious crime boss. She'd expected denial, deflection, maybe even threats. Not this brutal self-awareness, this willingness to acknowledge his failures. "How long ago?" Maya asked gently. Since Isabella's mother passed? 3 years. Dante straightened, running a hand through his hair. Cancer. By the time we caught it, there was nothing we could do. She fought for 8 months, and I watched her fade away piece by piece. He was quiet for a moment. Bella was 5 when it happened. Old enough to understand she was losing her mother, young enough to not understand why I couldn't fix it. I'm sorry. I made her a promise. Dante's eyes fixed on the OR doors again. Standing at my wife's grave, holding my daughter's hand, I promised I would take care of her, that I would be enough for both of us, that she would never feel alone. He didn't need to say it. Maya could hear the unspoken truth hanging in the air, and I broke that promise. One of Dante's men, the mountain with the scar, approached and murmured something in Italian. Dante responded in the same language, sharp and dismissive. The man retreated. Problem? Maya asked. Always. Dante's expression hardened slightly. My absence from this afternoon's meeting has consequences. People wonder where I am, why I left so suddenly. Wondering leads to speculation. Speculation leads to vulnerability. Your daughter is in surgery, and the moment word gets out that Dante Romano's 8-year-old daughter is vulnerable, lying unconscious in a hospital, there are people who will see that as an opportunity. His voice was flat, matter of fact. That's the world I live in, Dr. Reeves. That's the world my daughter lives in because of choices I made long before she was born. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You think someone would actually... I know they will. Dante's eyes met hers, and she saw no doubt there, only certainty. Which is why there are now 20 of my men stationed throughout this hospital. Why is every entrance being watched? Why do I need to know the name of everyone who goes into that operating room? The hospital won't allow. The hospital will allow whatever I require to keep my daughter safe. There was no threat in his tone, just a simple statement of fact. I've already spoken with your hospital administrator. He's very understanding, especially after I explained that I'd be making a substantial donation to the new pediatric wing. Maya blinked. You bribed the hospital administrator. I made a generous contribution to a worthy cause in exchange for reasonable security accommodations during my daughter's medical crisis. Dante's smile was thin, completely legal, completely above board, and completely non-negotiable. Before Maya could respond, her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel at the nurse's station. Dr. Reeves, we have a situation. Man asking questions about the Romano girl. Says he's family. Security is with him, but he's getting aggressive. Maya showed Dante the text. His expression went from exhausted father to something cold and lethal in an instant. What family? He said quietly, already standing. Bella has no family except me. Everyone else is dead. They moved quickly through the hospital corridors, Dante's men falling into formation around him. Maya had to practically jog to keep up with his long strides. They reached the ER to find a man in his 40s arguing with 2 security guards, his face red with anger. I'm her uncle, the man was saying, loud enough to draw attention from nearby patients. I have a right to see her. Where is she? Dante's voice cut through the commotion like a blade. Antonio. The man Antonio turned, and Maya saw fear flash across his face before he covered it with false bravado. Dante, thank God. I heard about Bella. How is she? How did you hear? Dante asked, moving closer. His men had positioned themselves to block any escape routes. I only found out, myself 2 hours ago. Antonio's smile was oily. Word travels, you know how it is. Family looks out for family. We're not family. I was married to your wife's sister. For 6 months before she divorced you for beating her. Dante's voice was conversational, almost pleasant, which somehow made it more terrifying. Then you disappeared. Haven't seen you in 3 years. Haven't heard from you. I haven't received so much as a Christmas card for my daughter. So I ask again. How did you hear about Isabella? Antonio's eyes darted around, looking for support that wasn't coming. I have friends who told you the moment they heard Dante Romano's daughter was alone and vulnerable in a hospital. Dante took another step closer. Who thought maybe there was money to be made, or leverage to be gained, or information to be sold. That's not. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. Dante's hand shot out, gripping Antonio's collar and slamming him against the wall with enough force to make the man's teeth rattle. The security guards reached for their radios, but Dante's men stepped in, hands raised in placating gestures that somehow also communicated clear threat. Let me be very clear, Dante said, his voice deadly soft. You don't get to walk into this hospital asking about my daughter. You don't get to pretend you care. You don't get to use her situation for whatever scheme you and your friends have cooked up." He leaned in closer. "And if I ever hear that you've spoken her name again, if I hear you've told anyone where she is or what happened to her, they will never find your body. Do we understand each other?" Antonio nodded frantically, his face pale. Dante released him with a disgusted sound. "Get him out of here, and make sure he understands that coming back would be the last mistake he ever makes." Two of Dante's men grabbed Antonio by the arms and escorted him toward the exit. The man didn't resist, just kept glancing back over his shoulder with wide, terrified eyes. The ER had gone completely silent. Everyone was staring: patients, nurses, security guards, other doctors. Maya realized with sinking certainty that word of this incident would spread through the hospital within hours, and from there to the rest of Chicago. Dante Romano had just publicly threatened someone in the middle of Chicago Memorial's emergency room, and Maya had stood there and watched it happen. "Mr. Romano," she said quietly, acutely aware of all the eyes on them, "perhaps we should return to the waiting room." Dante looked around as if just realizing where he was, what he'd done. Some of the cold fury drained from his face, replaced by something that might have been regret. "Yes, of course." They walked back in silence, but Maya could feel the weight of what had just happened settling over her shoulders. She'd just witnessed the Wolf of Chicago in action, had seen firsthand why people feared him, why his name made city officials nervous and enemies disappear. But she'd also seen the way his hands shook when he released Antonio's collar. The way he'd immediately checked to make sure no patients had been frightened by his outburst. The way he moved protectively to block Maya from view when a photographer tried to snap a picture through the window. He was dangerous. He was violent. He was exactly what the newspapers said, and he was a father who'd just threatened a man for trying to exploit his injured daughter. Maya didn't know what to do with that contradiction. Back in the waiting room, Dante sank into his chair like all the energy had drained out of him. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Are you?" Maya sat down, keeping her distance but not leaving. "Sorry, I mean. For the violence? No. Antonio Russo is a parasite who would sell information about Bella to the highest bidder without a second thought." Dante looked at her. "Sorry that you were exposed to it. Yes, you saved my daughter's life. You don't deserve to be pulled into the ugliness of mine." "I'm already pulled in," Maya said. "The moment I called you, the moment I brought you here, I became part of this. You could walk away, go back to your normal life, forget you ever met us." Maya thought about that going back to her apartment, her routine, her safe, predictable existence, thought about never knowing if Isabella woke up, if she recovered, if she got to go home to her purple bedroom and her stuffed rabbit. "I don't want to forget," she admitted. "I want to know she's okay." Dante studied her face for a long moment. "Why do you care so much? You must see dozens of patients every shift. What makes Bella different?" Maya wasn't sure she could explain it, the instant connection she'd felt with the little girl, the fierce protectiveness that had surged through her the moment she'd seen Isabella's unconscious form. Maybe it was because Isabella reminded her of her brother Danny at that age. Maybe it was because Maya had grown up with a father who'd worked 2 jobs and a mother who'd stretched every dollar, and she recognized that bone-deep exhaustion in Isabella's "Papa's always at work." Or maybe it was simpler than that. "Because she needed someone," Maya said quietly, "and I was there." Before Dante could respond, the OR doors opened. Dr. Kim emerged, still in her surgical gown, pulling down her mask. Her expression was carefully neutral, giving nothing away. Dante was on his feet instantly. "How is she?" Dr. Kim's face broke into a small smile. "The surgery went perfectly. We evacuated the hematoma, relieved the pressure. There was no sign of herniation, no additional bleeding. Her brain looks good, Mr. Romano. Really good." Maya watched Dante's knees almost buckle with relief. He gripped the back of a chair to steady himself, his eyes closing briefly. "She's okay?" His voice was rough. "She's really okay? She'll need to stay in the ICU for 24 to 48 hours for monitoring, doctor," Kim continued. "But barring any complications, I expect a full recovery. No permanent brain damage, no lasting effects. Your daughter is incredibly lucky, Mr. Romano. If Dr. Reeves had waited even 30 more minutes to find you, I understand." Dante opened his eyes, and Maya saw they were bright with unshed tears. "When can I see her?" "She's in recovery now. Give us about 20 minutes to get her settled in the ICU. Then you can go in. She'll be groggy, probably won't be fully conscious until morning, but you can sit with her." Dr. Kim left to check on her other patients. Dante stood frozen for a moment, then suddenly turned to Maya and pulled her into a fierce hug that lifted her completely off her feet. "Thank you," he said against her hair, his voice breaking. "Thank you for finding me. Thank you for saving her. Thank you." Maya's arms came up automatically, awkwardly patting his back. She was acutely aware of how solid he felt, how his expensive cologne mixed with fear sweat, how his heart hammered against her chest. "You're welcome," she managed. But Dr. Kim did the hard part. "I just made a phone call." Dante set her down but kept his hands on her shoulders, looking down at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "You made the call that mattered. You didn't give up on finding me. You kept looking even when it would have been easier to just let the ethics board handle it." His thumbs brushed against her collarbones, a gesture that seemed unconscious. "You saved my daughter's life, Maya. That's a debt I can never repay. I don't want repayment. I just want Isabella to recover." "She will." Dante's smile was transformative, making him look younger, lighter. "Thanks to you, she will." One of his men approached, murmuring something about the situation at the west entrance. Dante's smile faded, the weight of his world settling back onto his shoulders. He nodded, gave some instructions in Italian, then turned back to Maya. "I need to handle something, but I'll be back before they let me see Bella. Will you?" He hesitated, and Maya realized with shock that he was uncertain, vulnerable. "Will you come with me? To see her? I think she'd want to see a friendly face when she wakes up, someone who isn't surrounded by men with guns." Maya should say no, should maintain professional boundaries, extract herself from this situation before it got any more complicated. Should remember that this man had just slammed someone against a wall in her ER, that he lived a life of violence and danger that she wanted no part of. But she kept seeing Isabella's small hand reaching for her, kept hearing "don't go" whispered in that tiny, frightened voice. "Yes," Maya heard herself say. "I'll come." Dante's relief was palpable. "Thank you. I'll be back in 10 minutes. He left with his men, moving with that predatory grace that seemed to clear space around him wherever he went. Maya sank back into her chair, her legs suddenly shaky. What was she doing? What had she just agreed to? Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her best friend and fellow ER doctor, Jen. The text was simple. "Girl, we need to talk. Like now." Maya looked up to see Jen standing in the doorway of the waiting room, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. She was a petite Korean woman with sharp eyes and sharper instincts, and right now she looked seriously concerned. "Hey," Maya said weakly. Jen sat down next to her, close enough that no one else could hear. "Rachel told me what happened. The threatening, the security situation, all of it." She kept her voice low. "Maya, do you know who that man is?" "Yes." "And you're still here?" Maya looked at her friend. This woman who'd been through medical school with her, who'd held her hand through Danny's recovery, who knew her better than almost anyone. His daughter needed help, Jen. What was I supposed to do? Help her. Which you did. Brilliantly. And then extract yourself from the situation before. You become collateral damage in whatever mess he's involved in. Jen gripped Maya's hand. "I know you have a hero complex. I know you can't walk away from people who need you. But Maya, this isn't some struggling single mom who can't pay her bills. This is Dante Romano. There are literally FBI task forces dedicated to taking him down. Isabella is 8 years old. She almost died today." And her father, Maya, stopped, trying to find words for what she'd seen in Dante's eyes. "He's not what I expected. He's a criminal. He's a father. He's both." Jen's voice was gentle but firm. "And the father part doesn't erase the criminal part. It just makes him more dangerous because now he has something to protect, something people can use against him. And you, my brilliant, compassionate, completely insane friend, have just put yourself right in the middle of that equation." Maya knew Jen was right. Knew that every logical, rational part of her brain was screaming to walk away, to go, and home, to pretend this night had never happened. But she couldn't stop thinking about Isabella's drawing that had been in her backpack, a stick-figure family with a mom, a dad, and a little girl, all holding hands under a bright sun. The mom had wings, like an angel. The dad stood at a distance, separated by a thick black line. Just like the drawing in the inspiration video, Isabella had created a visual representation of her family, her mother gone, her father present but unreachable, a wall between them built from absence and broken promises and too much work. And Maya couldn't walk away from a little girl who drew pictures like that. I know it's dangerous, she said quietly. I know I'm probably making a huge mistake. But Jen, you should have heard her when she was seizing. She kept saying Papa, Papa over and over. She loves him despite everything. And he, Maya's voice caught. He looked at her like she was his entire world. Jen sighed. You're not going to walk away, are you? No. Then at least be careful. Promise me you'll be careful. I promise. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jen squeezed her hand. I need to get back to the ER. But text me every hour. And if anything feels wrong, you call me immediately, and I'll have the entire Chicago PD here in minutes. That might not help if the problem is the Chicago PD is scared of him. Then I'll call the FBI. Hell, I'll call the National Guard. Just be careful, Maya. After Jen left, Maya sat alone in the waiting room, watching the clock tick toward the moment when she could see Isabella. She thought about Jen's warnings, about the very real danger of getting involved with Dante Romano's world. But mostly she thought about a little girl who needed anyone to show up for her. Someone who wasn't paid to be there, who wasn't obligated by family or duty, who just cared. Maya had spent 7 years in emergency medicine seeing the worst of humanity and the best. She'd seen parents who'd drive drunk with their kids in the car, and parents who'd run into burning buildings to save them. She'd seen the damage that neglect could do, and the miracles that love could create. Dante Romano might be a criminal. He might be dangerous. He might be everything the newspapers said and worse. But he was also a father who'd signed surgical consent forms with shaking hands, who'd threatened a man for trying to exploit his daughter's vulnerability, who'd looked at Maya with desperate gratitude because she'd kept searching when it would have been easier to give up. And Isabella was a little girl who deserved someone in her corner who wasn't afraid of her father's reputation or his world. Maya stood up and headed toward the ICU, her decision made. She was staying. Whatever that meant, whatever it cost, she was staying. The ICU was quieter than the ER, the lights dimmed for nighttime, machines beeping in steady rhythms that spoke of life continuing despite trauma. Maya showed her badge to the nurse at the desk, a middle-aged woman named Patricia, who she'd worked with before. Dr. Reeves, Patricia said with obvious relief. I'm glad you're here. Mr. Romano has been intense. Maya looked through the window into Isabella's room and saw Dante sitting beside his daughter's bed, her small hand engulfed in both of his. His head was bowed, lips moving in what might have been prayer or promises or both. He's been like that since they brought her up, Patricia continued. Won't leave her side. Won't let anyone near her without him watching every move. One of the nurses tried to adjust her IV and he nearly broke her wrist, grabbing her arm. He's scared, Maya said softly. He's terrifying, Patricia corrected. But I suppose when your child almost dies, you're entitled to be a little overprotective. She handed Maya a chart. Vitals are stable. Neurochecks are good. She responded to painful stimuli appropriately. Pupils are equal and reactive. Dr. Kim thinks she'll wake up sometime tomorrow morning. Maya reviewed the chart, noting with satisfaction that everything looked exactly as it should for post-operative craniotomy. I'm going to sit with them for a while. Patricia's eyebrows rose. You're off shift, Dr. Reeves. I know. And this isn't your patient anymore. Dr. Kim has full responsibility for her care now. I know that too. Patricia studied her face, then sighed. Just be careful. Men like him, they're complicated. And complications in the ICU rarely end well. Maya pushed open the door to Isabella's room. Dante looked up immediately, his body tensing defensively before he recognized her. Then his shoulders dropped slightly, some of the fierce protectiveness easing. Maya, he said, and hearing her first name in his deep voice made something flutter in her chest that she firmly ignored. Thank you for coming. She moved to the opposite side of Isabella's bed, automatically checking the monitors even though she'd just reviewed the chart. The little girl looked peaceful, her head wrapped in white bandages, dark curls spread across the pillow. Her face had regained some color, the bluish tint around her lips completely gone. She looks good, Maya said softly. Really good. Doctor. Kim said she'll have a scar. Dante's thumb traced gentle circles on Isabella's hand. Said the hair might not grow back exactly the same where they cut. She'll barely notice. Kids are resilient, and her hair will cover most of it once it grows back. Bella's very particular about her hair. A ghost of a smile crossed Dante's face. She makes me braid it every morning before school. It takes me 20 minutes and looks terrible, but she insists only I can do it right. The image of this dangerous, powerful man carefully braiding his daughter's hair made Maya's heart clench. You'll have to teach her to do it herself eventually. I know, but I'm not ready for that yet. Dante looked up at her, and in the dim light of ICU, with his defenses lowered by exhaustion and relief, he looked younger, vulnerable. I'm not ready for her to not need me anymore. She'll always need you, Maya said. Just in different ways as she gets older. They fell into comfortable silence, both watching Isabella's chest rise and fall with steady breaths. Maya found herself noticing details she'd missed in the chaos of the ER. How Dante's suit jacket was draped over the back of his chair, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up to reveal strong forearms. How his hair, so perfectly styled earlier, now fell across his forehead in a way that made him look less intimidating. How his eyes, which had been so hard and cold with Antonio, softened every time they landed on his daughter's face. Can I ask you something? Dante said after several minutes. Of course. Why didn't you call the police when Antonio showed up, or when I threatened him? He looked at her directly. You knew what I am, what I do. But you stood there and watched, and didn't try to stop me. Maya considered the question carefully. Because he was threatening your daughter. Because in that moment, what you did was exactly what any father would want to do to someone trying to exploit their child's pain. She paused. And because I trusted that you wouldn't take it further than necessary. That you were in control, even when you looked like you weren't. You put a lot of faith in a man you barely know. You put a lot of faith in a doctor you barely know when you let us cut into your daughter's skull. Dante's smile was genuine this time, reaching his eyes. Touché. A soft knock on the door interrupted them. One of Dante's men, the one Maya had heard, called Marco, stood in the doorway with a phone in his hand. Boss, I'm sorry, but Sal's been calling. Says it's urgent. Dante's expression hardened immediately. Tell him I'm unavailable. He says the Caruso family is making moves. Says they heard about Bella and they're testing our defenses on the south side. 3 of our warehouses were hit tonight. Maya watched the transformation happen in real time. The exhausted, vulnerable father disappearing behind the mask of the wolf. The crime boss who ruled Chicago with fear and force. How bad? Dante's voice was ice. No casualties on our side. Theirs either. Just intimidation. But Sal wants authorization to respond. Dante was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving Isabella's face. Maya could practically see him weighing options, calculating risks, making the kind of decisions that probably kept him awake at night. Tell Sal to pull everyone back, he said finally. No retaliation. Not tonight, not tomorrow. Not until Bella is out of this hospital and safe at home. Marco blinked. Boss, if we don't respond, the Carusos will see it as weakness. Other families will, let them. Dante's voice was quiet but absolute. Let them think I'm weak. Let them think I'm vulnerable. Let them test every boundary they want. But I will not start a war while my daughter is lying in a hospital bed fighting to recover. He looked at Marco. Is that clear? Crystal. Marco hesitated. For what it's worth, boss, I think you're making the right call. After Marco left, Dante leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. That's 3 warehouses, probably $500,000 in inventory, and a significant blow to my reputation. All because I won't leave my daughter's side. Good, Maya said firmly. Dante looked at her in surprise. Good, she repeated. Isabella needs you here more than your businesses need you there. More than your reputation needs defending. More than anything else in your world needs your attention. She moved around the bed to stand beside him. This is where you should be, Dante. Right here. Everything else can wait. You make it sound simple. It is simple. It's just not easy. Maya pulled up a second chair and sat down. But you're choosing your daughter over your empire. That's not weakness. That's the strongest thing you could possibly do. Dante looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. You're not what I expected when I walked into that ER tonight. What did you expect? Someone who would be afraid of me. Someone who would do their job because it was their job, then forget I existed. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind Maya's ear, the gesture so gentle and unexpected that she froze. I didn't expect someone who would fight as hard for a stranger's daughter as I would. Someone who would sit in a hospital room in the middle of the night when they could be home sleeping. Someone who would look at me and see a father instead of a monster. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs. His hand was still near her face, fingers barely brushing her cheek, and she should pull away, should maintain professional distance, should remember all of Jen's warnings. But his touch was warm and his eyes were soft, and Isabella was sleeping, peacefully between them, and Maya couldn't remember why keeping her distance had seemed so important. "I see both," she admitted quietly. "The father and the monster. I don't know if that makes me brave or stupid." "Both," Dante said with a small smile. "Definitely both." His hand dropped away, leaving her skin tingling where he'd touched her. They sat in silence again, but it felt different now, charged with something neither of them wanted to acknowledge or could afford to explore. The night stretched on. Nurses came and went, checking Isabella's vitals, adjusting medications. Patricia brought Maya coffee around 3 a.m., giving her a knowing look that Maya steadfastly ignored. Dante's men rotated shifts outside the door, a constant reminder of the dangerous world just beyond this quiet room. Around 4 a.m., Isabella stirred for the first time. Her fingers twitched in Dante's grip, and a small sound escaped her lips. Not quite pain, not quite distress, just the soft confusion of someone emerging from anesthesia. "Bella?" Dante leaned forward immediately, his entire being focused on his daughter. "Bella, sweetheart, can you hear me?" Isabella's eyelids fluttered. "Papa?" "I'm here, baby. Right here. You're okay. You had surgery, but you're okay now." "Hurts," she whispered, her voice slurred. Maya pressed the call button for the nurse. "That's normal, sweetie. You had an operation on your head, but we're giving you medicine to help with the pain. Can you open your eyes for me?" Isabella's eyes opened slowly, unfocused and confused. They found Dante first, and Maya watched relief flood the little girl's face. "Papa, you came." "Of course I came," Dante's voice broke. "I'll always come for you, Bella. Always. I'm so sorry I didn't answer when you called earlier. I'm so sorry I wasn't there when you fell." "Tried to call you," Isabella mumbled. 4 times. I know, and I will never forgive myself for not answering." He pressed his lips to her forehead, careful, to avoid the bandages. "But I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere. Do you understand? I'm staying right here until you're all better." Isabella's eyes drifted to Maya. Recognition flickered across her face. "You found Papa. You promised and you found him." Maya moved closer, smiling despite the tears in her eyes. "I told you I would. Your Papa got here as fast as he could." "Don't go," Isabella whispered, her small hand reaching toward Maya. "Please stay." Maya looked at Dante, seeking permission. He nodded, his expression unreadable. She took Isabella's hand gently. "I'm here, sweetie. I'm not going anywhere." Patricia entered to do a full neurological assessment. Isabella answered simple questions: her name, her age, what city she lived in. She could wiggle her toes, squeeze both hands, follow Patricia's finger with her eyes. Everything was exactly as it should be. "She's doing beautifully," Patricia said with genuine warmth. "Dr. Kim will be pleased. Get some rest, Isabella. You're going to be just fine." As Patricia left, Isabella's eyes were already closing again, the effort of waking too much for her recovering brain. But she held tight to both Dante's hand and Maya's, as if she could keep them there through sheer force of will. "Papa?" she mumbled, barely conscious. "Yes, baby? Love you." Dante's composure finally shattered. Tears spilled down his face as he pressed his daughter's hand to his lips. "I love you too, Bella. More than anything in this world. More than anything that ever was or ever will be." Isabella was asleep again, but a small smile curved her lips. Maya gently extracted her hand and stood, giving them privacy. She moved to the window, looking out over the city lights of Chicago spreading out below. Dawn was coming, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Behind her, she could hear Dante crying softly, the kind of tears that came from terror finally released, from relief too profound for words, from love that was both the strongest and most vulnerable thing in the world. Maya had seen a lot in 7 years of emergency medicine, had witnessed tragedy and triumph, loss and miracles, but she'd never seen anything quite like this. A man who ruled through fear reduced to tears by his daughter's 3 simple words. She'd never seen anything quite like Dante Romano loving Isabella Romano with every broken, dangerous, complicated piece of himself. And she'd never felt herself being pulled into someone else's orbit quite like this, inexorably, dangerously, completely. Whatever happened next, whatever consequences came from this night, Maya knew one thing with absolute certainty. Her life would never be the same. Isabella's recovery was remarkable. By the 3rd day, she was sitting up in bed, complaining about the bland hospital food and asking when she could go home. By the 5th day, Dr. Kim cleared her to be discharged with strict instructions for rest, medication, and follow-up appointments. Maya had spent Every evening at the hospital after her shifts ended, she told herself it was professional concern, just checking on a patient. But the truth was more complicated. She'd grown attached to Isabella's bright laugh, the way she drew pictures of butterflies and rainbows despite everything she'd been through, the way she'd grip Maya's hand when the physical therapist made her do exercises that hurt, trusting completely that Maya wouldn't let anything bad happen. And then there was Dante. He'd kept his promise. He hadn't left Isabella's side except for brief phone calls with his men, always within view of her room. Maya had watched him transform over those 5 days from the terrifying man who'd slammed Antonio against the wall to someone softer, gentler. He read Isabella stories in Italian, his deep voice making the words sound like music. He helped her eat when her hands shook from medication. He braided her hair each morning with patient concentration, his large hands surprisingly deft, with the delicate strands. But Maya also saw the texts that made his jaw tighten, the whispered conversations in the hallway that ended with clenched fists, the way his men's faces grew grimmer with each passing day. The Caruso family wasn't the only one testing Dante's boundaries anymore. Word had spread through Chicago's underworld that the wolf was vulnerable, distracted, choosing his daughter over his territory. Other families were making moves subtle at first, then increasingly bold. Shipments went missing. Key contacts were being poached. Businesses that had paid protection money for years were being approached by competitors. Dante's empire was bleeding, and everyone knew it. On discharge day, Maya arrived at the hospital to find Isabella's room filled with flowers, balloons, and stuffed animals. The little girl sat on the bed in regular clothes jeans, a purple sweater, sneakers looking almost normal except for the white bandages wrapped around her head. "Maya!" Isabella's face lit up. "Look, Papa bought me a new rabbit because I couldn't find my old one." She held up a plush bunny, this one pink with floppy ears. "Her name is Rosa." "She's beautiful," Maya said, settling into her usual chair. She'd brought a book Matilda by Roald Dahl that she'd been reading to Isabella each evening. "Are you excited to go home?" Isabella's enthusiasm dimmed slightly. "I guess. Papa says I have to rest a lot. No running, no playground, no climbing anything. Just for a few weeks while your brain heals. Then you'll be good as new. Will you come visit me?" Isabella's brown eyes were wide, hopeful. "At our house? Papa says we have a big library and a garden and a pool, though I'm not allowed to swim yet. But you could come anyway and we could read books or draw pictures or—" "Bella." Dante's voice was gentle but firm. He'd been on the phone in the corner of the room, but now he approached the bed. "Dr. Reeves has her own life, her own patients. I've been very kind to spend so much time with you already, but she's my friend," Isabella protested. "I know, sweetheart, but friends don't always get to see each other as much as we'd like." Maya saw something flash across Isabella's face, hurt, disappointment, and underneath it all, a familiar resignation. The same expression she'd worn when she'd said, "Papa's always at work." The look of a child who'd learned not to expect too much from the adults in her life. Actually, Maya heard herself say before her common sense could stop her, "I'd love to visit. If your papa says it's okay." Dante's eyes met hers, and she saw surprise there, mixed with something that might have been gratitude or might have been warning. "You don't have to." "I want to," Maya said firmly. Isabella's recovery isn't just physical. She needs emotional support too. Familiar faces, stable presence, people who care about her well-being. She kept her voice professional, clinical, even though her motivations were anything but. "I'd like to check in on her progress over the next few weeks. Make sure there are no complications. See, Papa? She wants to come." Isabella bounced slightly on the bed, then winced, her hand going to her head. "Careful, Bella," Dante said, steadying her with gentle hands. Then to Maya, "If you're certain, I don't want you to feel obligated." "I don't feel obligated. I feel invested." Maya smiled at Isabella. "Your daughter fought hard to recover. I'd like to see the finished result. What she didn't say. I'd like to see if you keep your promises to her. I'd like to make sure you don't disappear back into your work now that the crisis is over. I'd like to be there in case she needs someone who isn't afraid to call you out when you fail her." Dante seemed to hear all of it anyway. His expression was unreadable, but he nodded slowly. "Then you're welcome in our home anytime. I'll give you the address." The discharge process took another hour. Final examinations, medication instructions, follow-up appointment scheduling. Maya walked with them to the hospital entrance where a black SUV waited, considerably less ostentatious than the fleet that had arrived the night of Isabella's surgery. Dante lifted Isabella into the back seat with the care someone might use handling priceless crystal. His men had formed a protective perimeter, eyes scanning the parking lot and street beyond for threats that Maya couldn't see but knew were real. "Thank you," Dante said to Maya, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "For everything. For saving her life. For staying with us. For—" he paused, searching for words. "For seeing her as a person instead of just a case." "That's what she is," Maya said simply. "A person. A little girl who deserves every chance at a normal, happy life. And you think I can give her that?" There was something raw in his question, a vulnerability he rarely showed. "Someone like me?" Maya looked past him to where Isabella was, already chattering to Marco about Rosa the rabbit, animated and alive in a way that would have been impossible 5 days ago. "I think you're trying. That's more than a lot of fathers do." Dante's hand found hers, squeezed once a gesture of gratitude or promise or something neither of them could name. Then he was climbing into the SUV beside his daughter. Maya watched them drive away, already regretting her impulsive offer to visit, already knowing she'd keep that promise no matter what it cost her, already understanding that she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross, stepped into a world she couldn't step out of, let herself care about people who lived in the shadows and violence she'd spent her whole life avoiding. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jen. "Coffee tomorrow? Need to hear how the last few days went." Maya typed back, "You're not going to like it." Jen's response was immediate. "That's what I'm afraid of." The Romano estate was everything Maya expected and nothing she was prepared for. 20-foot iron gates opened onto a winding driveway flanked by manicured lawns and ancient oak trees. The house itself was a sprawling Mediterranean-style mansion, all white stone and terracotta tiles, with balconies and arched windows that belonged in a European villa. Maya pulled her 12-year-old Honda Civic up to the circular driveway, suddenly acutely aware of how out of place she looked. Her car had dents and rust spots. Her jeans had a hole in the knee, patched with an iron-on that was peeling at the edges. Her sneakers were the same ones she wore in the ER, comfortable and practical and definitely not designer. Before she could second-guess herself, the massive front door opened. Isabella appeared, bouncing with excitement despite the bandages still visible beneath a purple headband. "Maya, you came. I thought maybe you forgot or Papa scared you away or something. But you're here." She grabbed Maya's hand, pulling her toward the entrance. "Come see my room. Come meet Mrs. Chen. Come see the library. Papa got me 12 new books." "Bella, let Dr. Reeves breathe." Dante appeared behind his daughter, and Maya's breath caught. She'd only ever seen him in suits, expensive, tailored. The armor of a man who ruled through appearance as much as action. But today he wore jeans and a simple black t-shirt that stretched across his broad shoulders, his feet bare, his hair slightly damp like he'd recently showered. He looked younger, more approachable, and somehow more dangerous for being so casual. "Sorry," Isabella said, not sounding sorry at all. "But I'm excited. We never have visitors except Papa's work people, and they're all boring and scary." "Bella," Dante's voice held gentle reproach. "Well, they are. Marco never smiles. Sal talks too loud. And nobody wants to hear about my drawings or my books." She looked up at Maya with those wide brown eyes. "But you do. You're not boring at all." Maya laughed despite her nervousness. "I'm definitely not. As exciting as you think. I'm just a doctor who works too much and drinks too much coffee. Papa drinks too much coffee too. And works too much. You're perfect for each other." The innocent comment hung in the air like a grenade. Dante's face flushed slightly the first time Maya had seen him show embarrassment. "Bella, that's not Dr. Reeves is here to check on your recovery. Not to—" I know, Isabella sighed dramatically. "I just think it would be nice if Papa had a friend who wasn't scary. Someone who makes him smile like he does when he's reading to me." Before either adult could respond, she was pulling Maya deeper into the house. The interior was stunning marble floors, high ceilings with exposed beams, artwork that Maya suspected was worth more than her annual salary, but it wasn't cold or ostentatious. There were warm rugs, comfortable furniture, and everywhere Maya looked, signs of Isabella's presence. Crayon drawings stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, a pile of sneakers by the door, a half-finished jigsaw puzzle on the coffee table. This wasn't just a showpiece. This was a home. "This is the library." Isabella pushed open double doors to reveal a room that made Maya's jaw drop. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves on 3 walls, filled with leather-bound volumes and colorful paperbacks. A rolling ladder for reaching the high shelves, deep leather chairs near a fireplace, and in the corner, clearly new, a child-sized reading nook with pillows and a lamp shaped like a crescent moon. Papa had that made special for me, Isabella said proudly, so I could have my own space to read. Come see my room next. She dragged Maya up a sweeping staircase to the second floor. Her bedroom was exactly what an 8-year-old girl would dream of: purple walls, a canopy bed with gauzy curtains, shelves filled with toys and books and art supplies. A window seat overlooked the garden, and on the walls hung Isabella's drawings, professionally framed. Papa, and frames all my favorite ones, Isabella explained. He says someday I'll be a famous artist, and these will be worth millions. Maya examined the drawings more closely. They were good, really good, showing a natural talent for color and composition that most children her age didn't possess. But what struck her most was how many of them featured just two people: a little girl and a tall man. No mother figure, no other children, just Isabella and her father, together in scenes both real and imagined. In one, they were at a playground, the man pushing the girl on a swing. In another, they sat together reading books in what looked like the library downstairs. In a third, they held hands walking through what might have been the garden. Each drawing was a wish, Maya realized, a hope for time together, for attention, for connection. These are beautiful, Isabella, Maya said softly. I draw what I wish would happen, Isabella said with the blunt honesty of children. Papa likes them. But he gets sad sometimes when he looks at them. I don't know why. Maya knew why. Because each drawing was evidence of promises broken, time not spent, a little girl growing up in a beautiful house but missing the one thing money couldn't buy: her father's undivided presence. Come on, Isabella said, already moving toward the door. Let me show you the garden. Mrs. Chen is making lunch. Do you like pasta? Mrs. Chen makes the best pasta. Even better than the restaurants Papa takes me to sometimes, though don't tell her I said that because she'll get all proud and… Bella… Dante appeared in the doorway, and Maya realized he'd been following them this whole time, staying back but present. Why don't you let Mrs. Chen know we have a guest for lunch? Doctor, Reeves and I need to talk for a moment. Isabella's face fell slightly, that flash of disappointment again, but she nodded. Okay. Don't talk too long, though. The pasta gets cold and then it's not as good. She skipped away down the hallway, and suddenly Maya was alone with Dante in his daughter's bedroom, surrounded by evidence of everything he was trying and failing to give her. I'm sorry about what she said, Dante began, moving to the window seat, keeping distance between them. About us being perfect for each other. She's at that age where she thinks every woman who's nice to her would make a good mother figure. She doesn't understand that I'm not here for that, Maya finished. I know. And you know. Isabella's just a kid seeing her father interact with someone who isn't afraid of him. She doesn't have a lot of reference points for what that looks like. Dante turned to look at her, his expression unreadable. Are you afraid of me? Maya considered the question honestly. Sometimes, when I see glimpses of the other you, the one who threatened Antonio, the one your men call boss in that particular tone, that version scares me. But most of the time I just see a father trying his best for his daughter, someone who made a lot of complicated choices before she was born and is now trying to figure out how to protect her from the consequences. That's generous. It's honest. Maya moved, closer to the window, looking down at the garden below. Can I ask you something? Anything. Are you going to keep your promise? About being there for her? Dante's jaw tightened. I've been here every day since the hospital. I've barely left the house. I know. But what happens when the crisis is over? When she's fully recovered and life goes back to normal? Maya turned to face him. Are you going to go back to being the man who misses 4 phone calls because business is more important? Or are you going to be the man she draws in all those pictures, the one who's actually present in her life? You think I haven't asked myself that every day? Dante's voice was low, intense. You think I don't know what I've been doing wrong? I see those drawings, Maya. I see what she wants from me. But I don't know how to give it to her and keep her safe at the same time. What do you mean? Dante was quiet for a long moment, clearly weighing how much to reveal. Since word got out about Bella's accident, about how I stayed at the hospital instead of responding to attacks on my territory, I've lost 2 major contracts. 3 of my most reliable associates have started taking meetings with the Caruso family. Someone vandalized one of my legitimate businesses, the restaurant on Lincoln Avenue that I actually own legally, that has nothing to do with the rest of it. I'm sorry, Don't be. It's exactly what I expected. Dante ran a hand through his hair. My world operates on fear and power. The moment you show weakness, the moment you choose something over the business, you become a target, and everyone connected to you becomes a target too. Maya felt ice in her stomach. Isabella, Dante confirmed. She was always protected before my family, my blood, completely off limits. But now people have seen that I'll sacrifice territory for her, that I'll ignore threats for her, that she's not just something I protect, she's something they can use against me. So what are you going to do? I don't know. The admission seemed to cost him. I could go back to how things were, respond to every threat, show strength, rebuild the fear, but that means leaving Bella alone again, working late, missing calls, becoming the father in those drawings who's always at a distance. Or I could do what I've been thinking about since the night she went into surgery. Dante met her eyes. Walk away. From all of it. Take Bella and disappear. New city, new name, new life. Somewhere she can just be a kid and I can just be her father. Maya's heart stuttered. The thought of them leaving, of never seeing Isabella's bright smile again, never watching Dante's rare moments of softness, hit her harder than it should have. Could you really do that? She asked. Just walk away from everything you've built? For her? Dante looked down at the garden where Isabella had appeared, talking animatedly to an older Chinese woman who must be Mrs. Chen. I'd burn it all to the ground myself if it meant she could grow up normal, safe, happy, but you don't think you can. I think the moment I try to walk away, every enemy I've ever made will see it as the perfect opportunity. I think they'll come after us. I think trying to protect her by leaving might actually put her in more danger than staying and fighting. His voice was bitter. I'm trapped between two impossible choices, and either way, I'm failing her. Maya moved to stand beside him at the window, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. You're not failing her. You're here, aren't you? You're trying to figure out how to give her what she needs. That's more than a lot of fathers do. It's not enough. Maybe not. But it's a start. Maya took a breath, knowing she was about to offer something reckless, possibly dangerous, definitely complicated. What if there was a third option? Dante turned to look at her. What do you mean? You can't leave because it's too dangerous. You can't go back to how things were because it means abandoning Isabella emotionally. Maya's mind was racing, connecting pieces she hadn't realized were there. But what if you did both? What if you started pulling back from the business slowly, strategically, while building legitimate alternatives? What if you gave yourself time to transition instead of trying to do it all at once? That would take years. So, Isabella's 8. You have time. And in the meantime, you make different choices. You answer her calls. You show up for her school events. You prove to her and to yourself that she comes first. Maya held his gaze. You don't have to have all the answers right now, Dante. You just have to start moving in the right direction. Dante studied her face for so long that Maya started to feel self-conscious. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. How did you get to be so wise? Emergency medicine teaches you that sometimes there are no perfect solutions. Sometimes you just have to stop the bleeding and deal with the rest later. And that's what you think I should do? Stop the bleeding? I think you should have lunch with your daughter and let yourself enjoy being with her without guilt or worry or thoughts about your empire crumbling. Just for an hour. Just this once. Let everything else wait. Dante's hand found hers, his fingers warm and solid. And you'll stay? For lunch? If you're sure I'm not intruding. You could never intrude. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, a gesture that felt intimate, intentional. Bella's right about one thing. It is nice having someone here who makes me smile. Someone who sees past the reputation and the fear to whatever's left underneath. There's a lot left underneath, Maya said softly. More than you think. They stood there for a moment, hands joined, looking down at Isabella in the garden. The little girl was picking flowers, probably to put in a vase on the lunch table. Mrs. Chen was laughing at something Isabella said, and even from this distance, Maya could see the pure joy on the child's face. This was what Dante was fighting for, Maya realized. Not power or territory or reputation. This a little girl picking flowers in a safe garden, surrounded by people who loved her, completely unaware of the battles being waged to keep her world intact. And somehow, impossibly, Maya had become part of that world. We should go down, Dante said finally. But he didn't release her hand immediately, before Bella comes looking for us and jumps to more conclusions. Would those conclusions be so terrible? The question surprised them both. Maya hadn't meant to say it out loud, hadn't meant to acknowledge the tension that had been building between them since that night in the ICU when he'd tucked her hair behind her ear. Dante's eyes darkened. Maya, Papa, Maya, lunch is ready. Isabella's voice floated up from downstairs. And Mrs. Chen made tiramisu for dessert. The moment broke. Dante released Maya's hand and stepped back, putting proper distance between them. But something had shifted. Some line had been crossed, and they both knew it. We should talk, he said quietly. About this. About what you're getting into by being here. I know what I'm getting into. Do you? His voice was intense. Because I'm not sure I do anymore. I don't know if I'm being selfish by wanting you here or if I'm putting you in danger by letting you get close. I don't know if I'm reading too much into the way you look at me sometimes or if you feel even a fraction of what I... He stopped himself. We should talk. But not now. Not with Bella waiting. They went downstairs together, maintaining careful distance. But Maya could still feel the phantom warmth of his hand in hers, could still hear the unfinished sentence hanging between them. If you feel even a fraction of what I what had he been about to say? Lunch was surprisingly normal. Mrs. Chen was warm and maternal, clearly adoring Isabella, and treating Dante with a familiarity that spoke of years together. The pasta was indeed incredible. Isabella talked non-stop about her books, her drawings, her plans for when she could go back to school. My friends are going to think my bandages are so cool, she said confidently. Emma G. broke her arm last year and everyone wanted to sign her cast. But a brain surgery? That's way more impressive. Brain surgery isn't a competition, sweetheart, Dante said, but he was smiling. Maybe not, but it's still pretty cool. Isabella looked at Maya. Do you fix people's brains a lot? I'm an emergency doctor, so I see all kinds of injuries. But neurosurgery, brain surgery, that's a special skill that Dr. Kim has. I just helped diagnose what was wrong and made sure you got to the right doctor. But you saved my life, Isabella said matter-of-factly. Papa said so. He said if you hadn't found him, I would have died. Maya glanced at Dante, who was suddenly very interested in his pasta. Your papa and I work together to help you. That's what doctors and families do, we're a team. I like you being on our team. Isabella reached over and squeezed Maya's hand. Can you stay on our team forever? Forever. Such a simple word from a child's mouth, loaded with implications neither adult wanted to examine too closely. I'll be around as long as you need me, Maya said carefully. For your recovery and beyond that, we'll see. It was the most honest answer she could give. Because the truth was, Maya didn't know what she was doing here. Didn't know if she was staying because of professional concern for Isabella or something else entirely. Didn't know if the flutter in her chest when Dante smiled was just attraction or something deeper, more dangerous. Didn't know if she was walking toward something beautiful or setting herself up for the biggest heartbreak of her life. After lunch, Isabella insisted on showing Maya the garden. They walked through manicured paths lined with roses and lavender, past a fountain where koi fish swam lazily, to a small greenhouse filled with herbs and vegetables. Papa's teaching me to grow tomatoes, Isabella explained. They're not ready yet, but Mrs. Chen says by August we'll have so many we won't know what to do with them all. Your father's garden? Not really, but he's trying because I asked him to teach me. Isabella touched a tomato plant gently. He's been different since the hospital. He's here more. He doesn't look at his phone during dinner. He reads to me every night even when I know he's tired. That's good, isn't it? It's really good. Isabella looked up at her, and there was something old in her young eyes, a wisdom born from loss and loneliness. But I'm scared it won't last. Once I'm all better, he'll go back to how he was before, working all the time, missing calls, forgetting about me. Maya's heart broke. Oh, sweetheart, your papa loves you so much. He will never forget about you. But he has before. Isabella's voice was small. Not on purpose. I know he loves me. I know he doesn't mean to choose work over me, but it happens anyway. She picked a lavender stem, twirling it between her fingers. Mama used to say that Papa lived in two worlds, the one with us and the one with his work, and the work world was bigger and louder and it pulled him away from us even when he wanted to stay. Maya didn't know what to say to that. How do you promise a child that her father will change when you weren't sure he could? How do you offer hope when the reality was that Dante Romano's world was complicated and dangerous, and probably incompatible with being a present, available father? Your papa is trying, Maya said. Finally. I've seen it. He's really trying. And sometimes that's all we can ask of the people we love, that they try. Are you in love with my papa? The question was so unexpected, so direct, that Maya actually stumbled over a root in the path. What? No. Isabella, I barely know your father. I'm just here to check on your recovery and… You look at him the way Mama used to, Isabella interrupted. Like you see something good in him even when he's being grumpy. And he looks at you like you're magic. Like you made something impossible happen just by being there. Isabella. It's okay if you are in love with him, Isabella continued, perfectly serious. I think it would be nice. Because maybe if Papa had someone who loved him, someone who was just his, and not because of work or fear or whatever, maybe he'd remember that there's more to life than being the boss. Maybe he'd stay home more. Maya knelt down, bringing herself to Isabella's eye level. Sweetheart, your father staying home more, being present in your life that can't depend on anyone else. That has to be his choice. Something he does because you matter to him, not because someone else is there. I know. Isabella's eyes were too wise, too sad, but it's still nice to hope. They walked back to the house in silence. Dante was on the phone in his study, visible through the window, and Maya could see the tension in his shoulders, the hardness in his expression. The wolf, not the father. Business intruding on this brief respite of normalcy. Maya stayed another hour, reading with Isabella in the library while Dante handled whatever crisis required his attention. She left as the sun was setting, with promises to visit again soon, and Isabella's fierce hug nearly crushing her ribs. Dante walked her to her car. His phone was still in his hand, though silent now, and he looked exhausted. I'm sorry about the call, he said. There was a situation that needed immediate attention. It's fine. You don't have to explain. I want to explain. I want you to understand that I'm trying to… He stopped, frustration clear on his face. Every time I think I can step back, something pulls me in deeper. Someone threatens my territory. Someone challenges my authority. Someone makes a move that requires a response or everything falls apart. I know. Do you? Dante moved closer, and Maya's breath caught. Because from where I'm standing, you keep offering me solutions as if it's simple. As if I can just choose to be different, choose to walk away, choose to be the father Bella deserves. But it's not that simple, Maya. Every choice I make has consequences for my business, for my men, for my daughter's safety. I can't just… I never said it was simple, Maya interrupted, anger flaring. I said it was necessary. There's a difference. And yes, it will be hard. Yes, there will be consequences. But Dante, if you don't start making different choices, if you don't start prioritizing Isabella over your empire, you're going to lose her anyway. Maybe not physically, but emotionally. She's 8 years old and she's already preparing herself for you to abandon her again. Is that what you want? Of course not. Then do something about it. Maya's voice rose despite her best efforts. Stop making excuses. Stop waiting for the perfect moment when your business is stable and your enemies are quiet and everything is safe. That moment will never come. You have to decide right now, today, what matters more, being the Wolf of Chicago or being Isabella's father. Because you can't be both. Not really. One of them is always going to win, and right now, your daughter is losing. Dante stared at her, something dangerous flashing in his eyes. For a moment Maya thought she'd gone too far, pushed too hard, said things that would make him shut her out completely. Then his hand was in her hair, pulling her forward, and his lips were on hers. The kiss was fierce, desperate, tasting of coffee and frustration and desire too long denied. Maya's back hit her car as Dante pressed against her, one hand still tangled in her hair, the other gripping her hip like he was afraid she'd disappear. She should stop this. Should push him away, maintain professional boundaries, remember all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, she kissed him back. Her hands found his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. His body was solid, warm, and overwhelming in the best possible way. The kiss deepened, turned from desperate to something slower, more deliberate, more dangerous. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. I'm sorry, he said, his voice rough. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Maya's fingers curled into his shirt, keeping him close. Just tell me what this means. It means I can't stop thinking about you. It means when I'm in those meetings I should be focused on. I'm wondering what you're doing. It means I spend my days with the most dangerous people in Chicago, and the only time I feel truly alive is when you walk into a room. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone. It means I'm falling for you, Maya, and I have no idea what to do about it. Maya's heart stuttered. We barely know each other. I know you saved my daughter's life. I know you sat in a hospital room for 5 days when you could have walked away. I know you see me as a father before you see me as a criminal. I know you're not afraid to tell me when I'm wrong, even when everyone else is too terrified to question me. His eyes searched her face. I know you make me want to be better than I am. Isn't that enough to start with? Your world is dangerous. I'll keep you safe. Your business. Is that exactly that? Business. Separate from this. Separate from you and Bella and anything that matters. Can it be? Maya asked softly. Can you really separate them? Or will I end up like your wife loving you but losing you to a world I can't compete with? Dante went still. How did you know about? Isabella told me that her mother said you lived in 2 worlds. Maya's hands softened on his chest, less demanding, more pleading. I don't want to be someone you love but can't prioritize. I don't want to be another person waiting for you to choose them over your empire. If we do this, if we start something, I need to know you're really choosing it. Really choosing us. I am. Prove it. Maya pulled back slightly, forcing him to meet her eyes. Not with words, with actions. Show Isabella, show me that you mean it when you say she comes first. That we come first. How? You'll figure it out. She kissed him once more, soft and brief. I have faith in you, Dante. Now you need to have faith in yourself. She got in her car before he could respond, before she could lose her nerve and take back everything she'd just said. In her rear view, mirror, she watched him standing in the driveway, silhouetted against the golden light from his house, looking lost and determined and terrifyingly dear. Maya drove home with the taste of him still on her lips, and the terrifying knowledge that she'd just fallen in love with exactly the wrong man, at exactly the wrong time. And somehow, impossibly, she was okay with that. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.